Eva, episode number 5.
Episode 5.
These are our cool new mugs. They're bigger. The handle.
Mm-hmm.
So, right? So, again, this is garnering its own popularity. I think even more popular than perhaps the episode. But listen to at the end and you can be eligible once again for a Pithy Musings coffee, tea, or as you said in your last, in the last episode, you had carrot and tomato juice in your mug as a kid. You can put whatever you want in that mug.
Absolutely.
So welcome everyone to episode 5, in which we are entitling, "We Are All Curious Creative Beings," or are we? So we are going to be exploring the topic of curiosity and creativity. We reached out to many of our family and friends in advance of this session to kind of get their ideas of how the two topics are intertwined. Just to remind our watchers and viewers that the last episode was "Who Am I?" So we explored that. I can't believe we're already on number 5. It's amazing.
Right? I know. It's exciting.
So before we introduce ourselves, again, we never know how this is going to go, but I wanted to show you what I think is the quintessential book on creativity. This book has been around for, I think, 25, 30 years. It is by Julia Cameron. It's called The Artist's Way. So I just want to read the introduction that I thought was really interesting. When people ask me what I do, I usually answer, I'm a writer, director, and I teach these creativity workshops. The last one always interests them. How can you teach creativity? They want to know. I can't. I tell them. I teach people to let themselves be creative. Oh, you mean we're all creative? Yes. You really believe that? Yes. So what do you do? So I wanted to start there because I think there's this notion out there that creativity can't be taught, it's innate. I was born a creative painter, artist, whatever. So really what we're going to explore today is not only the importance of creativity and curiosity personally, but the importance of creativity and curiosity professionally. So with that, I will begin by introducing myself and then I'll turn it over to you. For those that don't know me, my name is Carolyn Berglund, and I am the principal of an organization by the name of Talk Talk and the One Stop Special Needs Shop. We specialize in leadership, public speaking, doing a ton around team development. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. And I love the quote from Artist's Way and the permission it gives us to explore in our own creativity and in the world. And with that, I am Eva Van Krugel. I'm with Fervor Leadership Coaching and Consulting. And what's really fun is there are lots of ways in which Carolyn and I both play in same spaces, yet we are not competitors. We are creative collaborators. And how fun is that? This right here is a creative space. We get to create and it completely dials up our energy. We love it. So thank you everybody for being here. It's delightful.
You know what's interesting with what you just said? Yeah. Sorry, it's that loud.
I know, welcome.
You know, I've had people say to me like, who's the target market of Pithy Musings, right? I said, no, all this is the opportunity to collaborate and learn. Yeah. I learned so much from you after each of those episodes, and I hope the same on your side. It's just an opportunity to explore for no hidden agenda whatsoever.
Yeah, and we go to places that we connect in with as individual humans and what we're noticing out there in community, in humanity, and also through our work with leadership and clients. And that was one of the reasons why this topic came forward for us, was because, for example, we're hearing lots of people say, "Oh, I'm not creative." Oh, and as a coach, I have to say unbiased. What I really want to say is, oh yeah, you are. In the year that I've known you, I've watched you be creative. It's about reframing what creativity is, can be for each of us and in the world. So we were both struck by the opportunity to dig into the topic.
Well, let's go there, because I had a number of people in which I spoke to in advance of this episode say, "Oh, I'm not creative." No, that's not me. But what I would challenge those that go there, that naturally go there, you might be thinking right brain, left brain. I'm a left brain thinker. Those creatives are on the right side, right? Is that, let's look at mathematicians. One might say that that's not a creative pursuit. Math is probably the most creative exercise that you can engage in. Technology, IT professionals, holy, that's creative. So what we're going to encourage you, our listeners or watchers that think I'm not that creative, is as we explore this topic together, see how you might be creative.
Yeah, and we also close the conversation, as we usually do, with ideas that both Carolyn and you and I, I'm talking about you like you're not even here, but you and I, it's Friday. It's a Friday for us. Yeah, some top ideas that we have that we've observed in our own lives and also in our client work that we offer to stretch creative capacities, even if you're not a painter or an illustrator or a musician, ways in which we can grow and stretch these capacities. So as you've said, we've reached out to our amazing communities, both professionally, personally, and they brought forth some really cool comments, themes. What are some of the themes that stood out for you?
There was a bunch, but the one that I think is prevalent is about being like a child. So if we think about ourselves, it's so interesting that our last episode was called "Who Am I?" Right? And we showed the pictures of us as kids. If you think of yourself as, a little girl, 3 or 4-year-old version, there was no shackles in terms of play. You took that Lego set out, right? And you started building. You went to this, the sand, and you build a sand castle. There was no, oh, that's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be perfect. You just went and played. So that was one of the themes that I thought was just really interesting. How about for you?
The same. It's reminding me of a couple of thoughts that my sister-in-law had, who is a children's educator, through to my stepmother, who is the epitome of creative. She's a poet and a novelist. Was a former professor. I mean, the list goes on. A painter, an illustrator, all these things. In their different experiences in lives, they both pointed to children. And there's no inhibition, or there's less inhibition in children. We just dive in and create. And social structures over time, something my stepmom pointed to, social structures over time have trained us out of letting go and experimenting without attachment to outcome.
Have you ever seen the TED Talk by Ken Robinson?
No.
It's if you haven't seen it, viewers, watchers, if you haven't seen it, like homework, go and type in "Do Schools Kill Creativity" by Ken Robinson. And he really explores that, how schools take out the wonderment, it undermines the creative process. It reminds me of a term. I think I wrote it down here. Autodidact. I love that word. And that is, I'm a self-learner, basically.
Okay.
I'm curious, I pick up a book. What I think schools might do, I'm picking on schools right now, but society even, is they reward going to school, getting that PhD, that master's, that MBA. It's force-fed learning as opposed to what am I interested in? And there's no reward in terms of letters behind that. But where does that get squeezed out of us at some point? This sense of wonderment and play and just picking up a topic for no other purpose because I'm curious.
I think it's interesting because later on in life, what are some of the themes that we're seeing? Yes, in a pandemic and perhaps well beyond the pandemic, we're seeing encouragement from, Greater Good Center, Science Center, Berkeley, offering the value of creating space for awe, wonder, gratitude, which all work the muscles to become more connected with head, heart, physiological being, getting grounded, centered, and open up new pathways. So why are we seeing this? Is it a resurgence or is it coming forth? I don't know, but it is really interesting. And I wonder if it's a response to conformity and opening up new pathways for divergence and experimentation.
Well, you mentioned the pandemic, which I find kind of interesting because in workshops, often I will ask this question: what hobbies have you picked up during the COVID-19? Like, when did we ever ask if anybody's picked up hobbies? Like, it's a question people ask, and most people have picked up some semblance of a hobby during the pandemic because we're not able to go places. So I think we have become, I think at least personally, more creative. Have you picked up any hobbies since the pandemic started?
I mean, I've definitely, because we're connecting, this is probably my own bias, because I think we're connecting more with what matters in our core value systems. And we're more limited. Well, we think we're more limited, but in our ways, we're more limited to what we had access to before. So we're wanting to find new ways to entertain ourselves, to fill space, to support the relationships that we're in. So for sure, I'm dabbling more in the garden and getting my hands more in the soil. For sure, I'm making more creative recipes and making daring things that I would never have done before. These are all creative expressions. I have, I dabbled in painting and started practicing piano more. So I've just pretty much answered, the big question, and I am noticing it in other people as well. What about for you?
Well, don't you have a little something?
A little show and tell. We both have show and tells.
Yeah, I want to see what you made.
Well, so I know what you made, and it's so beautiful, and I'm like, it like moves the heart to see it because it's so amazing. I'm a little more rough. However, this is an interesting moment, actually.
It is an interesting moment.
I'm catching myself having just said, yeah, there's lots of ways in which I have creative expression. And I think a really important opportunity is that we are not comparing. So I almost just danced in the space of comparing and going, oh, Carolyn, your work, which you'll share, is so beautiful. Mine's just, ooh.
Right? And I think for a lot of people, they won't even begin the creative, curious process because they go, well, how could mine measure up to that? Or it's been done before, or.
So right there, we're making ourselves smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're making our inhibition go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we just caught me doing it. So this is good. We're always learning. So I'll share with you. So I was just playing with some folks one day in a studio last year, right as the pandemic began, and I created this little painting.
I love it.
Well, and it's in honor of missing Indigenous women, the symbolism of red dresses. So, and they're empty on purpose because they're gone.
Yeah.
And we mustn't forget them. So anyways.
I love it. And I love the meaning behind it. And I love everything about it. I hope that's displayed somewhere prominently in your home.
You know what? Thank you. That's very kind. And it was actually stuffed in a closet because I couldn't find space. And because I compared to some other things that are up from artists out there in the world. And so just because you said it, I will on purpose, I will put it up after this.
Yes. Yes.
Show me show me yours.
So during the pandemic, I've always liked camouflage, and I had this idea to paint the coronavirus in camouflage. So this is one.
It's gorgeous.
And it's a series. It's series. There's 3 of them in different colors. And then again, everybody knows my almost crazy love for Leonardo Da Vinci. And so with that same kind of thought process, I also painted Mona in camouflage.
I love her.
And that's also a series of 3. I do everything in 3s, not sure why.
Well, tell me,
my sanity.
What material are you using?
Acrylics.
Acrylics. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're
but
black.
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that, no, you go ahead. I'm stopping.
Well, I'm curious about, I know that life is so full for you, and yet you're making space for creativity. And tell me if you could offer some guidance to others out there who say, got no time for that. What would you say?
Yeah. I would say, well, let me go back and tell you how important creativity and curiosity is for me. Because when it's not in my day today, there's something off with me. So I think about, I was in a job for a long time, and I creativity and curiosity there was no room for it, or so I thought. And I felt very depleted fairly regularly, whether that was, observable by others or not. Since I've constructed my own little organization here, I've realized I've had a couple of epiphanal moments. And one of them has been, I have to embed the curious creative process every single day. So that painting took quite a while. It's part of my meditation. That's how I start every single day.
Beautiful.
I go up to the easel, and it's so I would say for those that are watching and listening and say, I don't have time, I would say, try it on. Try baking time for play, creativity, curiosity, wonderment, awe. And see what happens. Schedule it.
Yeah. And when you do it, let go of attachment to outcome. For the longest time. Totally. Like, I'm just going to share something ridiculous. And it doesn't look stunning yet, but it will. This and the fragrance. I mean, it's so rich and chocolatey. It's a flourless chocolate tort, and I didn't have the right pan for it. Do you like how I'm just going to zoom right in there? I know. And I wanted to show you my chocolate tort.
I love it. I want some.
Well, I'm going to cut it up into little squares, and it'll go on these, quite lovely antique plates from my parents and, from my dad, my stepmom. And, it'll get dusted with some sugar and, little raspberries and fruit and, maybe edible flowers if I can find them in time. But there are times, just as you are sharing, where I have to bake. I'm compelled to bake or cook. And sure, we can pin that down to, am I an emotional eater? Sure. But beyond that, I love the kitchen as a creative place. My kitchen is my painting palette. And if I don't get to cook or bake creatively, at least a few times a week, I feel like something's missing.
Yeah.
So whatever someone's creativity is for them, maybe it's putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
But I think part of our message, or you want to say something?
I just thought of something as you were talking when you asked me how do you bake in the creativity thing. So I'm about to turn 50. That's happening soon. And
Apparently it's an
January
awesome decade.
Apparently, can't wait.
I'm right behind you.
But I got a really cool idea from a friend of mine, Sue. Shout out to Sue.
Hi,
And I'm going to get the I'm going to get the wrong term here because I converted it. But we were at another friend's cabin and we were kayaking, and she was telling me that as she approached her 50th birthday, she created a list of like 50 to 50 things to do before 50. And so of course I came home and I did that 50 to 50. And
Yeah.
so I divided it into two categories: 25 things I want to learn and 25 things I want to do. So on learn, painting class, read 50 books, write 2 books, chess, knitting, learn a magic trick. I'm not kidding that I'm being very serious about this, and they're laughing right now because they know I've been working on this really hard.
Love it.
Create a YouTube video, make it viral. This is even before I met you, I think. Get a tattoo, raise $1 million for a special needs cause. Like I think it's just about being conscious about being creative.
And shifting and reframing what creativity is out there in the world. We think about, I think in an earlier conversation, we were talking about, well, what are the opportunities to be creative? Even when we have a hard moment with someone in customer service, is the company tooling that person to be creative? Sometimes that person is just fundamentally creative and they're like, I know how we're going to fix this. I know exactly what we're going to do. And I'm like, oh, you beautiful, creative, responsive, tuned in being you, which is, I actually think that could be a significant competitive advantage to have amazing creative customer service. And we're seeing some companies do that. But I think there's opportunity for creativity in technology. We're in it. I mean, look at how many things you and I have each had to learn in order to facilitate learning and conversations online. We could list off, what is it, Mentimeter and Miro and Mural, and these are all, in one sense, I've had to challenge my own brain to go, wait a second, these are opportunities to learn, to create, to experiment. It's creative in order to facilitate a positive learner experience. It's creative. There's tons of ways through to healthcare and problem solving, to approach to leadership, approach to community contribution, all of it. There's tons of opportunity. I think it's about a reframe. What do you think?
I think about what in particular of that? Sorry.
Well, in particular, I think about, what do you think the world is calling on us to be and do that creativity can help with?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. I think there's an answer from the personal side and the professional side. So those that are loyal subscribers to Pithy Musings know that we don't take this just from one angle. We blend personal ideas around topics and professional. So on a professional side, I'll answer it by reading a quote. According to a study by IBM and based on 1,500 corporate heads and public sector leaders across 60 nations and 33 industries, creativity is now the most, hear me this, the most important leadership quality for success in business, outweighing even integrity and global thinking.
Yeah.
So I think, and I reflect on various leaders that I've had throughout my career, and that said, did they possess creativity or curiosity? And I think of one person in particular who had a more command and control style of leadership, certainly did not invite different ways of looking at solving problems, doing things differently. He certainly wanted to be the smartest individual in the room, and so did not invite any of that, or did not nurture an environment in which there was creativity. And the challenge with that is you cannot innovate, you cannot grow, you cannot achieve results without curiosity and creativity. My guess is that you might have had a similar experience as well, because I think most of us have.
Yes, and you've also made a point about the need for psychological safety, which is in one of our episodes, as a precursor and an enabler, a support mechanism to harvest creativity, experimentation, innovation, invention. There are, I look at an organization like IDEO. Anybody that doesn't know about IDEO, please look it up. IDEO has been doing incredible work in creativity, industrial design, and so much in full-on invention categories for a long time. And they have a whole bunch of perspectives about creativity, which I can talk about later on if we get to it. You're asking me about an experience that I've had that right away I think about, for many years before I diversified in my path, I was in marketing agencies, also known as, madmen ad agencies. And it's a creative
Did you have a cocktail? Did you have a cocktail?
Cocktail. There were cocktails
scotch
for sure. It's fun. That it's definitely, in those years, definitely a business of play hard, work hard, and some pretty amazing relationships that I've held until this day, which are pretty special. And it definitely gives you grit at a whole other level when you're having to sell ideas and you're trying to convince, persuade in really constructive ways, intentional and high integrity ways to a client that they should invest many dollars with many zeros after those dollars in faith and in past records that your creative and strategic thinking will win them what they need. But I remember in my first 5 years in the business, having been in a meeting with a creative team, and I had been on the business side. So I was in planning and client service. And I remember this creative team presenting some ideas. I had some ideas to share. Maybe I wasn't as finessed as I was, maybe hopefully later on, but I was sharing and enthusiastic and wanted to represent their idea beautifully when it came time to present to the client. As I built those ideas, as I built on their ideas, went back to my office, the head of client service at the time came to me and said, "You were hired not for your right-hand side of your brain. You were hired for the left-hand side of your brain. You are here for the business of things, for the relationship of things. Do not share your ideas with the creative team again."
What did you say?
I don't even remember. I think I had like a blackout of several months after that. But, it's a little bit traumatic, and it wasn't psychological.
More than a little, I would say.
I would say
No,
it was
no.
fear, limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And I say that lovingly. I think people are doing the best they can with what they have. And it did not harvest psychological safety. And so we can imagine over time the systemic impact. I left that company and moved on to another one where ideas were welcomed.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, then that becomes something that you actively seek out, right?
Well, and isn't that interesting where we have these hard experiences? We've talked about these things before, where we've had these hard experiences, and then we have a choice to convert the learning into a positive opportunity into the future.
I promise you, I will never work for an individual who doesn't value creativity, curiosity, self-learning, you know, it won't happen. Or with, not necessarily for, but with. Yeah. So I think in the professional world, you know, drawing from psychological safety, in which you just spoken, you do need to start there, and then bring on people that are curious and creative, and let them be. Let them change the product, the service. Let them reiterate, build on all of that stuff. That's how your business grows.
Well, and we've also noticed over the past easily 10, 12, maybe more years, this boost of organizations opening up innovation labs, maybe call themselves different things. And isn't that an interesting phenomenon? In one sense, as we're having this conversation, I mean, that's beautiful. In one sense, I really honor organizations in community or, you know, out there in the world in different sectors who are creating space to create in service of who they serve. I think it's pretty cool. It's like a hot spot for problem solving, creative problem solving. And at the same time, I kind of wonder, well, why is it over here on an island? What if it became embedded in the culture? And I think there is a bit of a movement around that, because we're starting to see themes around philosophies around creative leadership, creative cultures, creative problem solving, lots of creative decision making. We're seeing all these functions being prefaced by creative. And so what might be the possibility to bridge these islands of creatives and open it up more systemically with good cause? I wonder if people would feel more empowered. I wonder if people think they have the skill sets that they need. I wonder if it's more around limiting beliefs as well. Anyway, I'll pause there. What's coming to mind for you?
Well, of course, I got a bajillion books here. This one that comes to mind is, yes.
I love the stack. Just part of the show and tell.
It is. Well, there's more on the floor, but that's what we pulled from the library before. But what comes to mind when you're, I know, what comes to mind as you're talking is there's this place in San Francisco. It's called the Exploratorium. I've never been there, but what it is a museum-like place that brings artists, scientists, poets, organizations together just to play.
I love
to solve problems.
Have you been?
I actually believe this. I haven't. I want to go.
Okay.
So you got a mathematician and an artist and a CEO playing around problems.
Yeah.
I think creativity, this is going to be bold, curiosity is the secret sauce to changing the world. Whoa, not only organizations, the world. If you got a conglomerate of curious and creative people together to solve for some of the biggest problems in the world, I think you could do it through the two topics we're talking about today.
So that gets into some of the ingredients of creativity that, and I think we've talked about before, we fundamentally believe that we are all creative. And if we can learn, for those of us who think we aren't creative or say something isn't creative, that there's opportunity for fulfillment, success in the world, and positive impact to what the world needs in the future for humanity, for environment, for other living beings. And that the world needs us to be curious and creative.
Can I, again, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry because it's Da Vinci. I know everybody.
Sorry
but
for what?
This is a book that Right? So I don't know if it's getting boring, but there's this book. If you don't have it, this is my favorite book in the library. This is my favorite book in the library. And it's by Michael Gelb. It's How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. And he defines a term, it's called curiosità. It's Italian for curiosity, but he defines it as an insatiable, curious approach to life and an unrelenting quest for continuous learning.
Yeah, I love that.
I think if we all took a little bit of, if we all took a little bit of that, that idea of curiosity and quest for continuous learning into our everyday, personally, professionally, in the world, we can make this place a pretty cool place, a pretty fulfilling life journey.
Well, it sparks the question for me, well, what if? We see in collaborative ideation, we use the language of what if. In the language of coaching, we use what if, how might we? It's all rooted in curiosity and creating possibility without attachment to outcome. So I love the point you're bringing up around curiosity. And if we are, which is connected to a learning mindset, a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, the way we've always done things.
Carol Dweck, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Yeah.
Big opportunity for us in our home relationships, our community relationships, and at work. Yes.
I was just wanting to explore, and we're good, by the way, for what I was telling you about before. That's side note.
Feel complete.
I wanted to explore with you, Eva, what might prohibit someone from entering into curiosity in a bigger way than perhaps we've done thus far. And you told me a great story about playing the piano. Would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, the piano I played as a child and into early teens, and I really loved the piano. I danced, ballet, tap. I was in theater class. So I was exposed to, I had very, very creative parents. My father, my stepmother, my mother have each expressed themselves creatively through various performing arts and interests, and phenomenal at what they each do. So for years, I grew up, and then I experimented in creativity and loved it and all of that. And then I came into the corporate world, and then I thought, oh, I'm not creative like my parents. So that was, part of the impetus for the conversation that we even wanted to have today. But going back to the childhood thing, I was hardwired for creativity. However, there were some influences, and people are doing the best that they can. No shame, no regret. But I look back and I do remember being pushed to achieve with my creativity. So be amazing at that piano recital. Practice, practice, practice every day for this many hours. Practice, practice, practice. And it was okay if I made a mistake. It was always psychologically safe. I was simply being encouraged based on what, say, my mother knew to do. The practice and the notion of the hyperachievement around it made me almost like I pushed myself away from some of it, because it became a chore, a task, an achievement, and there was an anxiety that started to grow around it. So I parted ways. And for me, I'm not saying that for others that is wrong. For me, I do notice that if it is connected to a have to, that it interrupted the flow of it. There was a
Can I tell you something?
Outcome. Huh? Yeah.
Can I tell you something? And I'm smiling because, and my mom will be watching this. She's, I think, our biggest supporter. I was forced, mother, to play the piano for a gajillion years. A gajillion, like I don't even know how many years. That my mom wasted all of her money because I couldn't stand it. So it's interesting. I never liked it. Not once did I like it, but I played for, let's call it 10 years. I don't even remember. Where my sister quite liked it, and had a very different experience. I didn't even, we were in the Royal Conservatory program. I don't think I got past level 4 after playing for a gajillion years. So creativity also cannot be forced. And if it's not feeling good, well, you certainly don't do it, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's an element of flow and not being totally attached to outcome. I think loose outcome, let's say we're creative problem solving for a new innovative opportunity. There is an outcome. There needs to be some kind of outcome. Yet I think we need to create the psychological safety, the curiosity, the space for curiosity, healthy, ongoing curiosity, and create space for flow, whatever that means. I think that's why we see in lots of creative spaces, creative organizations, for example, we see the foosball machine. Did I say that right? Foosball? Is it foosball? It's foosball, right?
I think so.
Okay, clearly I didn't play that one. Or the little badminton, or it makes me, and those were creating, it was creating space for play and for flow.
Yeah.
And I think we need to weave some of that in to come back and go, I got it. Or it's when we're in flow. Why is it some of our most amazing solutions to problems, opportunities come up in the shower or out on a bike ride? I know that if I have writer's block, I love to write. And I'm a fairly frequent poster on channels like LinkedIn, things like that. Sometimes I feel stuck and I have like a writer's block. I know that if I go out on my bike ride, do my little spin around the city, I'll get it. I'll know exactly where to go. And every time I just put it out there that that's what I need, I come back, there it is. And I'll never forget being in an agency. And if the president of this agency is listening to this, that this is okay. I love him dearly. He took away some of the play. He said it's taking away productivity. And he and I could sit here today. He could be sitting in this conversation right now and we'd have a good, healthy debate about it still. I noticed a shift in culture the moment we took that play away. Play and flow, whatever that looks like for you in your life, in your work, for those listening, watching, make space for it.
Well, and the topic of flow is quite an interesting one that we haven't discussed, right? It's that state of mind where nothing else exists except for what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the analogy I'll often use in a workshop, if someone says, well, what is that? It's like, if you've ever gone skiing, you can't really think about much else but the task at hand, right? How do I get down this mountain? But it's this beautiful state of, like you, I like to write. And some of the products that I've written, short stories, novels, whatever, I'll step back and go, I actually don't remember really writing that. Like it's almost something takes over me. Transcendent. And it's intoxicating. And then if you're a writer like us, you're desperate to find that state. And that's what that writer's block is I can't find that state of flow. I can't get in there. So
that's a signal.
Yep.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. Do you want to finish your sentence? Okay.
No.
That to me is a really important signal. When we feel the block, that's a signal to go create space for self. Go and we're hearing lots about mindfulness. Dig into the mindfulness. Go for that walk around the block. Shift the energy. Get off a screen. Completely unplug. Leave your phone behind. But I know we're getting into tips, and we'll come to that shortly because I know we're heading toward time here. I wanted to, if you're open to it, just touch on a couple of other ingredients to creativity that struck me, in addition to your mention of curiosity, which I absolutely agree with you is a fundamental building block. One is bravery. I think it takes, and it's not just because we've talked about our words for the year. Yours is sparkle, mine is bravery.
Yes.
It was just an interesting quote that an individual we are both connected with on LinkedIn, Amy Uflick, out of Alberta.
Amy,
hi.
Hi, Amy.
She shared something really interesting. So she actually said, creativity is not being confined. Creative juices flowing freely, no limits. Whether it's scrapbooking, quilting, marketing, bouncing ideas, collaborating, building something amazing without knowing the destination and enjoying the process. She also shares, coming to the point of bravery, this beautiful quote from Jack Gilbert, because she's basically saying that sometimes being creative does require bravery, stepping into the unknown. So the quote is, without bravery, you will never be able to realize the vaulting scope of your own capacities. Without bravery, you will never know the world as richly as it longs to be known. Without bravery, your lives would remain small, far smaller than you would probably want your life to be.
Oh, Amy, God, I love that. I love it in so many ways, because I think it is brave to
Me too.
to open yourself up to the universe, really, and seek ways to be creative and curious. It reminds me of Elizabeth Gilbert's book called Big Magic. And in it, she talks about one of her friends who was an ice skater as a young child, and then gave it up because she was never going to become a famous ice skater or whatever. And she tells the story of how she went, well, screw that. And at 40, she took it up again for no other reason but because she loved it. So that took some bravery, I think, in terms of unearthing, well, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I'm going to go skate.
Yeah. Yeah. And not judging oneself that I'm going to go skate and I'll probably be a little rough around the edges. Just try. My stepmom, Linda Rogers, who's also a novelist and former poet laureate, has been such a positive influence. She reminds me to stop editing. Just stop editing. I mean, and if and when she's listening to this, she's like a whole other level of stop editing. She says what's on her mind and in her heart with no inhibition. And which is, and I love that about her. And I love the gift of the learning. Just stop editing. So there's a piano downstairs and I keep holding back from playing it because I'm not going to be as good as I was when I was a kid. And it's hard to learn as an adult. And she says, stop editing. Just play. So
just go play.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you do.
What's that?
I hope you do.
Well, I've been dabbling and then
you don't go play.
Yeah, no, I've been dabbling, and then Jack and I have been working on a duet together, soon to be released. I know. I know, it's cute. So
you gotta videotape that.
I will do that on a VCR with a VHS.
What was the other one called? The beta? No.
I don't know.
VHS, and then there was the other version. Anyways,
we're proud of aging.
We're old,
ourselves.
Clearly.
Whatever. We're gonna age. We're gonna just age well because we're gonna keep learning and being creative. Another ingredient I want to touch on too before we close it out is heart. The role of heart in creativity. And I want to thank an individual by the name of Jen Maurer, and I hope I'm saying your name properly. She works with IDEO, the design and invention company I spoke of. And I absolutely love what she has to say here. And I wanted to share it. And it's on the notion of linking head and heart and creativity. Creativity makes the world better, a better, more beautiful, more friendly place. When you think creatively, you're opening your heart and mind, and you're relating to people as humans. Creativity is an incredibly human thing. When we get too stuck in our heads, we wind up acting in ways that can be harmful. You need to balance that head and heart, and creativity is the link between the two.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I was moved reading that.
Yeah. I mean, hairs on my arm just went up. I hadn't heard that before. And I do agree with
I'm
that.
laughing. The hairs on your arms are going up. I just
What?
I just love that you call that out. Please continue. I apologize for
No, I mean, even that, right? When you hear something beautiful that really resonates, you do have a physiological reaction, or at least I do. I think it's one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, right? Is to open up. Mm-hmm. Such like that quote that you just said, head and heart. Yeah, I love it.
Do we want to share some of our top? I mean, there's so many places this conversation can go, and I'm hopeful that conversation that's taken place so far sparks something of resonance, relevance, meaning for our listeners and viewers. Shall we dig into some of our top tips, takeaways?
Yep.
You want to go first?
I've got two that I thought of just as we were going.
Nice.
Everything is a remix. So if what is prohibiting you is in creation, oh, I can't paint, or I can't play piano, or I can't write, or all of those typical right brain activities. Remember that Grandmaster Flash, again, aging myself, Grandmaster Flash has been remixed over more than any other song. My young millennials, Gen Zs, Zs, if you haven't heard of Grandmaster Flash, please go and seek that out. So that's top tip number one. And I think I would take my other top tip is to be really simple. Be curious, be relentlessly curious. Just like we said with curiosity, be an avid, open to learning just for the sake of learning, not for extrinsic accolades, just because you want to.
Yeah, love it.
Yours?
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, I think experimenting without attachment to outcome. Just experiment for experiment's sake. Whatever that is for you, whatever interest you're drawn towards, just experiment. Just let go. Another one is that we've touched on is creating space to rest the mind and to create flow, creating space to access heart. Something that has been really interesting through an individual by the name of Pamela McLean, who wrote Self as Coach, Self as Leader. She recommends that on purpose, if we're going to do what, say, you and I do in coaching and working with leaders, we need to stretch our emotional capacities on purpose. So we need to go and experience theater, watch movies, go to places that might make us have a complete meltdown unsuspectingly, stretch our emotional capacities. And so back to the head and heart, I would encourage people to think about ways that stretch their emotional capacities on purpose. Go feel deep. Go somewhere that literally makes you cry. Find that place to connect head with heart. I think there's also some daily practices too. There's someone I know who's trying to work on a reframe, and I love what she's doing, which is starting each day by asking the question, and she's got some journaling going on. What can I experiment with today? And so she's setting an intention. At the end of the day, she's practicing asking, what could I do differently tomorrow based on today? And she's keeping record of her ideas. This is how important it was for her to connect in with a core value of being creative. And let yourself be messy as part of experimenting for experimenting's sake. And I think if you're in a group setting, we need to stop editing each other. Stop editing. We need
Hallelujah.
I get diverge and converge mixed up. I think of them as opposites when they're actually, but anyway, so I always have to use the hands. We have to diverge in order to converge. And it's very natural for us. Right? We need to diverge to converge. And it's very natural for us to scrutinize. We're hardwired to scrutinize. Let it go. Instead of but, use and. We're hearing a lot of that. Ask how might we. You'll have lots of time to edit later on. Let's just get it all out there. And it's amazing how thoughts can link to the next that may come out as the word unicorn, and what that can open up for someone else when we don't judge it and we don't edit it. And I would also just encourage people, as a final thought, listen to music more. Go to creative spaces, even if you think you're not creative. Put on music in the background as a way to just open up new kinds of listening. Dance. You have something.
Speaking of music, speaking of music, we have a channel. So that was a part of a creative, curious exploration between the two of us, not just Pithy Musings, but we went the extra step and created a playlist based for what reason? No reason, just because we liked.
Well, and we like disco and funk. And to that, so for folks that want to make sure not miss out an episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. All you got to do is look up Pithy Musings YouTube, and there she is. Press subscribe. Spotify, you'll find Pithy Musings on Spotify if you want to put the funk back into your own being human. A little bit of disco. Notice the disco balls in both of our backgrounds. They go nowhere during the day, even after Pithy Musings. And if you want a mug with the big handle to put whatever brings you joy and happiness and creativity, all you've got to do is put one thing in comments to this episode, episode 5. We want to hear one thing that has struck a chord for you from this episode or any other episode, something that stands out, that resonated or sparked new thinking, whatever it may be. We do ask that we live in the psychologically safe zone, and we make sure that it's constructive. So please feel free to share. We would love that. And beyond that, if you have feedback, questions, please write Carolyn at talktalk.ca. You can also, that's her website. You can also reach me on my Fervor website, which is livewithfervor.com. And with that, a big thank you to you, Carolyn, and to everyone that joins us for these episodes. We appreciate all of you so much. And until next time, here it comes. Ready?
Ready.
Stay pithy.
Stay pithy. Keep musing.
Bye, everybody.